All right, y'all, here we go. Megyn Kelly bashes Moron AOC over call to impeach Supreme Court conservative justices. She calls her a Kardashian in Congress. Okay, let's listen.
AOC was out there today or over the weekend, I guess it was over the weekend, talking about impeaching some of some of the justices, the conservative justices. Weighing in on AOC's thought on that, and also Elizabeth Warren coming at the judges pretty darn hard. I mean, these people were appointed through the legal process. We have precedents. There's nothing new about this yet. They think because it didn't go their way, they got to change the court.
He says there's precedents. Aren't you guys arguing this very second that precedent doesn't matter when it comes to Roe versus Wade? So now, precedent is important because these judges went through the process and we're just following the precedent. So precedent is good, but precedent is also bad because Roe v. Wade was precedent.
Your thoughts?
Well, I'll distinguish between the two because I think AOC is a moron. I think Elizabeth Warren is smart. She's ideological and not necessarily aligned with you or with myself, but I think AOC is not that smart, and she really just wants to be a star. She's sort of a Kardashian in Congress, and I guarantee you she hasn't read the decision, and I guarantee you she has no understanding.
This is one of the things that people on the right have been saying over and over. Have you read the entire decision? Maybe 0.01% of people have read the entire decision, but anybody who's read even an article or two on what happened with Roe from beginning to end understands the decision. People know what happened. They know what's in it. They know what the bottom line is. This isn't a gotcha. This isn't a gotcha. You know who else didn't read the opinion? Megyn Kelly. She didn't read the whole thing. Of course she didn't read the whole thing. But she knows what happened, because we all know what happened. So, in other words, I hate it when they do this, because the argument is like, if you really understood what they said, then you couldn't disagree. Yes, I can. Of course I can. In fact, it's pretty easy to. It's the idea like, you just don't know enough. By the way, Megyn Kelly loves to posture as an anti-elitist these days. Now, just smugly, condescendingly, I think you're an idiot. Whereas I'm so intelligent because I tell people that Santa Claus is definitely white.
Of what substantive due process is, or the history of any of what she's talking about. So I hesitate to ever even discuss her, to be honest with you, but I will say this. Her ridiculous push to impeach the justices for not being totally honest about their respect for precedent during the judicial confirmation process will go nowhere.
That's not what she said. It's not because, they didn't respect precedent. That's not what she said. She said it's because they lied under oath, which is perjury. That's what she said. Why are you misstating it? You're not being honest about what she said. You're strawmanning what she said.
First of all the justices play a little fast and loose with how they're going to decide cases and how they're going to treat precedent.
They play a little fast and loose. In other words, they told some blatant, brazen lies, is what they did. Blatant, brazen lies. Now, some of them were a little more honest. I think Amy Coney Barrett was a little more honest. But Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, no. There are things that they said a number of times too, that were very clear on Roe versus Wade, which implied, we're not overturning that shit. We're not overturning it. And then they overturn it. So what she's saying is, hey, there could be some things there that are concrete enough that amount to perjury, amount to lying under oath. That's what she's saying. That is a totally fair argument. That is a totally fair point.
Respect for precedent. They all did it. And they all say that they're going to respect it. And then every single one of these jurists that you're looking at right now has voted to overturn precedent. Okay?
That point is true, and I've made this point time and time again. I don't like when people do precedent humping. Like, we must always respect precedent. Really? What about when precedent is wrong? What about that? Should we respect that too? No. Precedent in and of itself is not good or bad. It just is. And the real question we're having here is, what is your interpretation? What is your judicial philosophy? What is your interpretation of the Constitution? What is your interpretation of the words on the paper as it would apply to a case and its given facts? That's the conversation we're having. We should only have that conversation because the whole precedent gotcha game is stupid. You know, we're conservatives, if they uphold a precedent, are like, why is the left against precedent? And conservatives, if they overturn a precedent, is like, look, we're just going by what we think the interpretation of the Constitution is. So everybody should just drop the precedent thing and say, we are deciding what we think is accurate based on our judicial philosophy, the words on the paper, and the facts in front of us. So I agree on the precedent thing. But AOC said because they lied under oath is why they should be impeached, which is a reasonable thing to say. Now, look, maybe the wording that they used is Weasley enough, sufficiently Weasley where they can get out of perjury, where there's just enough wiggle room where the interpretation is not as straightforward as many would like it to be. That's possible. I don't know. But it's certainly a reasonable request.
I looked at the specific quotes at issue. There's nothing there. There's no problem with Gorsuch or Kavanaugh, so forget it.
That's not true. That's not true. There, at the very least, is a question as to whether or not they perjured themselves. At the very least, a lot of the language, some of it was direct, some of it was more implied. There might be enough Weasleyness there, but they very clearly implied, like, yeah, no, we're not going to overturn Roe, and then they overturned Roe, which is like, okay, so you just lied under oath. And you have idiots like Manchin and Susan Collins who are like, I really thought they weren't going to do this. So they have the biggest claim of like, these motherfuckers lied to us under oath.
Elizabeth Warren, she's political too. You know, she's an ideologue. So
are you, Megyn Kelly. I really don't like this. I really don't like it when people do this. Anybody who disagrees with me, it's, oh, why are you so political? You're such an ideologue. But me, no. I'm a bastion or a panacea of reason floating above the national discourse and dialogue. I'm above the fray. I am the embodiment of perfect objectivity. Everything and everybody, when talking about the court or politics, is by definition political. I know they like to pretend like, no, our job is not political. We don't legislate from the bench. Yes, they do. Every single judge and justice, no matter what their judicial philosophy is, no matter what party appointed them, legislates from the bench. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. This overturning of Roe versus Wade was legislating from the bench. That's what that was. The overturning of or basically saying our interpretation of the Constitution codifies gay marriage into law, that's legislating from the bench. Everything's legislating from the bench. Everything is. Everybody's political. Everything's political. She's an ideologue and she's political. Unlike me, Megyn Kelly, I'm ruthlessly non-political. Yes. No, if you were non-political, you'd be talking about like sports. You'd be talking about video games or makeup or literally anything that's not political. This is all political.
Like nothing. These guys haven't done anything wrong. They've interpreted the Constitution according to their judicial philosophy. People like Maxine Waters who are out there saying we're not going to follow it. You know what? You know what I have to say to her? Yes, you are. You are going to have to follow it. Sorry.
Zero understanding of history. Zero understanding of history. There are times throughout American history where the Supreme Court lost all of its legitimacy. You had Abe Lincoln said to them, that's nice. So you just ruled that black people aren't people. We're going to go ahead and not listen to that. Oh, you don't like that? Why don't you stop me with your army? Oh, you don't have an army. So I'm going to do what I want. That happened. And then the Supreme Court was forced to admit over time, yeah, we sort of lost all of our power because there's no enforcement mechanism for us. So the idea of like, yeah, just ignore the decision. That's a perfectly straightforward, reasonable interpretation because the argument is they are acting in an unconstitutional way. They are being authoritarian. So we are protecting freedom and liberty by ignoring the decision. Now, you might disagree with that, but that is just a disagreement. The idea of like, there's no way you could just not listen to that. It's happened in American history a number of times. They ruled the Social Security Act was unconstitutional, to which FDR said, bitch, you're not going to rule that. And let me explain to you why. If you do rule that, I'm going to pack the court. And they're going to decide Social Security Act is constitutional. So, balls in your court. You could rule that it is constitutional now, and then I won't pack the court. And what happened? Supreme Court backed down. And of course, we have Social Security. Does she know the history of that? No, of course she doesn't know the history of that.
But your state is no longer going to perform abortions if you're in a redder state, right? She's not. But women who are not going to be able to find abortions because the clinics are going to close down because doctors don't want to go to prison. It's called federalism. And if they would just continue reading the Constitution, some of these things might become clear to them without you and or yours truly having to explain it.
Unbelievable. Oh, man. She's so smug. She's so condescending. And it's pretty funny that, yes, does AOC care about getting eyeballs on her and fame and all that stuff? She absolutely does. You know who else cares about that? Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly bursted into this new media podcast scene because she feels like, oh, there's a lane here for me where I can get more famous and I can get more well-known. So the idea of sniping at somebody because, ooh, they want to be popular. Megyn, so do you. So do you. so do you. And by the way, I could sense she's copying a lot of people who came before her in this new media world in an attempt to get some degree of notoriety. And a lot of her arguments, by the way, and her philosophy has sort of changed and evolved to cater more to the online market because she's looking for that niche. So she's not exactly, the greatest truth teller in the world. So spare me. She's far too smug for me to digest. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.